Hello 8th graders, in this IXL video we are going to be taking a look at assignment R6. And R6 deals with the Pythagorean theorem, like you can see on my screen right now, and specifically it's just always asking, are the dimensions that we gave you the correct dimensions for a right triangle? And this, they call it the converse of the Pythagorean theorem. We've been using Pythagorean theorem to find a missing side of a right triangle, but it can also be used to determine if a triangle is a right triangle or not. We know that every single triangle, if it is a right triangle, needs to work with the formula a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So if they give us a triangle and they tell us the three dimensions, I'm going to draw one triangle out here. We don't know if it's a right triangle or not, but we know the three sides are 11 and 18 and 20. So the two shorter sides are 11 and 18. I'm going to call those, in blue, taking me a second, A and B. Because those are the two shorter sides. In this case, 18 and 11. And the longest side of this triangle is 20. And I'm going to put a red C over that. And I know if this is a right triangle, a squared plus b squared, the two short sides squared and added, would need to make the same thing as c squared. So if I want to test whether or not it's a right triangle, all I do is I plug these numbers into the formula for all three variables and see if the left side is equal in value to the right side like it should be. And if they're equal, it's a right triangle. If they're not equal, it isn't. So I'm going to go ahead here and we'll plug into that formula. Give me a second to copy it. Plugging in the 11 and plugging in the 18 and plugging in the 20 for A and B and C. So what we just did there in green is all we did was plug in the A and the B and the C. And we're questioning, is this true? Are they actually equal to each other? And next thing I'm going to do is go ahead here and square those numbers. I know that 11 squared is 121. I don't know what 18 squared is. I'm going to look that up in a second. And I know 20 squared is 400 because 2 times 2 is 4. If I'm not sure what 18 squared is, I can just grab my calculator and do 18 times 18 or 18 squared and realize that is 324. So now I'm going to go ahead. There's no variables left. I'm just trying to see is the equation true. When I add together 121 with 324, I get 455. Trying to do quick mental math there. I think that's right. Oh, 445, sorry. But either way, whether I get 445, whether I get 455, if this does not exactly equal the left and the right side, if this is a false statement, which this really is, this is a false statement, those are not equal to each other, that tells me quite simply this couldn't have been a right triangle. The left side and right side should have been equal if these three sides of a triangle formed a right triangle. So it must be some other kind of triangle, a non-right triangle, because a squared plus b squared did not equal c squared. And we'll show one or two more here, but literally all of R6 is running that skill. They're saying, hey, if you have a right triangle, or sorry, if you have the dimensions of a triangle, use the formula to tell if it's a right triangle or not. So here they tell us it's 14, 14, and 19. I'm going to label the big side C, that's 19. The two shorter sides, A and B, is 14 and 14. And we're just going to go ahead and plug into that formula. Switch colors here. We're going to have 14 squared plus 14 squared. And we're going to see, is that the same thing? Is it equal in value to C squared or 19 squared? I remember from earlier that 14 times 14, I thought it was 196. If I'm not sure of that, I can double check on my calculator. I can go do 14 times 14 up there. That is 196, and I can also do 19 times 19 to see what we get there. 19 times 19 gives us an odd number, 361. Now I'm going to show you a little math trick here. I could go add up 196 and 196, but they're two even numbers. And if I add up two even numbers, it's going to make an even. And I see an odd number over here when I squared an odd number. So I knew pretty early on that 14 squared plus 14 squared, two even numbers, would never be equal to an odd number. If we do this out exactly here in orange, basically 200 plus 200 minus 8, you'd get 392. Which is not the same thing as 361. And because of that, because I see that these came out to not be equal to each other, I know that this is not a right triangle. I do promise you, IXL will give you some where it does work out to be a right triangle, but you're just going to run the same process the whole time. I'm going to skip around and hopefully bounce into one that, hey, this formula really would work for it. 37, 79, 89. No idea, to be honest, so I'm going to skip ahead to an even more difficult one. We'll do it out and we'll see if it happens to work. Okay. So here we see another situation where they give us a triangle and the 3 side lengths. I'm going to be very careful. The biggest side length is the 89. So I'm going to go ahead and label the C as 89 for this one. The other 2 sides are 37 and 79. Now, I have no idea, to be honest. Not sure if this is a right triangle or not, but I'm going to plug in and this formula will tell us whether or not it is a right triangle. So I'm going to have 37 squared plus 79 squared. And the question is, does that equal 89 squared? I wrote some of them as 37 times 37. It means the same thing as 37 squared. And I'm going to need my calculator a bit. 37 times 37 is going to give us 1369. Plus whatever 79 squared is. We got to do that out. You see, this is really just almost, once I understand it, testing my skills with calculators. But 79 squared is 6,241. And then 89 squared, 89 times 89, ends in 7921. And here's how I know this is not going to be a right triangle before I even add those up. This ends in a 1. This would need to end in a 0 if they added up together to end in a 1. It's not going to be exactly 7,921. You can do out the exact math to look here, to check. We get 7,500, 7,610. And I think you'll get 7,610 when you add those together. 7,500, and then this is 110 with those two. Either way, as I told you, we're about to end in a 0 when we add the 1 and the 9 rather than ending in a 1. So this is not a perfect right triangle. It's close. Both sides are pretty close to each other, but it's not going to be exactly a 90-degree angle. I do promise you at some point they will give you problems where there are right triangles. The right answer is not always no. The correct answers will be whenever the left side is exactly equal to the right side, and it's just weird that the 3 or 4 we didn't ever show a right triangle. I think you're in great shape with this. Thank you for working to the end of the whole cluster for Pythagorean theorem, and great job on R6 on your own there. If you do have any questions, as always, you could send me an email. I'm having a tough time typing that email on the screen here. There we go. ddoherty3, and that's, as always, at bostonpublicschools.org. Thanks again for watching the end of the video. Keep up the great work.